Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about a very important JavaScript interview question. The question is, can you explain what a closure is and give a simple example? This is one of those questions that sounds scary at first, but actually the idea is pretty simple. So let's break it down step by step. First, what is a closure? A closure happens when a function remembers variables from its outer scope, even after the outer function has finished executing. In simple words, an inner function still has access to variables that were created outside of it. Alright, that sounds a bit abstract. So let's open VS Code and see a simple example. We have a function called counter. Inside it, we have a number called count. This function returns another function. Each time we call the return function, count increases and logs the new value. Now let's use it. Here we call the counter function. It returns a new function. I want to call my counter twice. Now run the code. You'll see each of the logs is different. Now let's understand what is happening here. When we call this line, the counter function runs. Inside it, we create a variable, let count. Then we return an inner function. Normally, you might think that after counter finishes, the count variable should disappear, but it doesn't. Why? Because the inner function still remembers it. That memory is called a closure. So every time we call my counter, it increases the same count variable. It doesn't reset to 0. It keeps the previous value. That's the power of closures. Now let's try something. Add this line. Outside the function, you'll get an error. Why? Because count is not accessible globally. It's private inside the closure. So closures also help us create private variables in JavaScript. And that's very powerful. Now you might be thinking, okay, but where do we actually use this? Closures are used everywhere. For example, in debounce functions, in throttle functions, in event handlers, and also in React, especially with hooks. If you've worked with React, you've probably used closures without even realizing it. For example, when you use useState and access the state inside a function, that's closure behavior, because the function remembers the variables from its scope. Now, if you want to give a clean and confident interview answer, you can say, a closure is when a function remembers and can access variables from its outer scope, even after the outer function has finished executing. Short, clear, professional. So, just to summarize, a closure happens when an inner function remembers variables from its outer function. The variables don't get destroyed. The inner function keeps access to them. Closures help us create private state. That's it for this video. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.